Indian troops occupy multiple heights in the Chushul sector. Helmet Top, Kala Top, Rechinla, Rezangla. Heights that allow India to dominate Chinese military installation across the LAC. 58 years after Major Shaitan Singh and his 13th Kumaon defended Rezangla to the last man standing. 45 years after the last shots were fired in anger, the guns are once again out in Chushul. Eyeball to eyeball, the nuclear neighbors wait. Who will blink first?
Hello and welcome. You're watching the News Unlocked, the show that takes you behind the headlines. Remember, the big focus at the moment for India's defense and strategic community is what's happening on the Sino-India line of actual control in eastern Ladakh. The two forces are, perhaps some are suggesting, closer to a conflict since 1962. Firing has taken place for the first time since 1975. Today, over the next half hour, we'll be focusing on those escalating tensions between India and China and be joined by a very special guest in a moment. What started in May, peaked in mid-June, has taken a reverse as we enter the month of September. When the world was battling the pandemic, remember the violent skirmish that broke out between Indian and Chinese forces in the Galwan Valley in June. That's been followed by several rounds of high-level meetings to de-escalate the tension. But now tensions have peaked once again with shots being fired at the line of actual control. What exactly happened? And why particularly is eastern Ladakh now becoming a potential flashpoint between India and China? Take a look.
This is the location where Indian and Chinese troops faced off on September 7th. A face-off that has sent temperatures soaring higher than ever during the 4-month standoff. The Chushul subsector has come into focus in the standoff between the Indian and PLA troops, following the movement that took place on the intervening night of August 29th and 30th, when Indian forces took control of Blacktop and Helmet Top heights.
Indian Army has captured strategic heights on the southern part of Pegongso Lake. These heights have immense tactical and strategic significance, as whoever holds these heights not only would dominate the southern part of Pegongso Lake, but would also dominate by fire and observation Chushul town, Chushul airstrip, as well as the defense fortifications of India.
Chushul, in southeastern Ladakh, south of Pangong So, remains a key defense area for the protection of the road to Leh. Rezangla on one side and Gurung Hill and Magar Hill on the other side overlook the Spangur Gap and gives a clear line of sight into areas under Chinese control.
One of the most important aspects of high altitude warfare is domination of heights. When you dominate a height, you're able to look into the enemy territory, you can see the enemy posts, you can see the enemy logistic bases, you can actually also bring down targeted fire onto the enemy military equipment also.
The action on 7th of September took place between Gurung Hill and Rezangla, when a Chinese patrol came very close to one of the Indian positions at the heights in this area. Given the Indian Army's visual advantage, the approaching Chinese were spotted and megaphones and floodlights were used to dissuade them. 58 years after the War of 1962, India and China are once again jostling for advantage along the line of actual control. And as in 1962, the heights of Chushul remain strategic to who controls this sector of the disputed region.
And as the situation between India and China along the line of actual control in eastern Ladakh remains tense, the question that is being asked, what happens next? Are the two countries being pushed closer to a potential conflict. Joining me now, Lieutenant General H.S. Panag, former GOC in charge of Northern Command, knows the area intimately. Appreciate your joining us, General Panag. The big question that's being asked, how close are the two countries to a 1962-like military confrontation?
I think the situation is very volatile, and China has got no option but to take action after we have launched the operation on the Kailash range, because it compromises its entire defenses in the Spangur Gap and in the area around Spangur Tso. Our positions prevent China from reaching the south bank of Pangong Tso, where we are in virtual control now. Also, it opens up avenues for our offensive into the Spangur Tso area. If you see the map, the international boundary, the original international boundary as we inherited in 1947, is just about 20 to 25 kilometers away from the Spangur Gap. So China has got a compulsion to take action against us on the Kailash range. It would try to keep it as a localized situation because China also does not want an enlarged war. But once China takes any offensive action against us, the situation can spiral into a limited war. And Chinese action against us will come sooner than later, because the more time we get to consolidate on the Kailash range, in China's appreciation, the more difficult it would become for it to take it back.
You're saying something very important, General, to us today. India's action about a week ago, around the 29th, 30th August, in capturing or holding some of those strategic peaks south of Pangong Tso, have given India now a psychological and strategic advantage, which you believe the Chinese will have to respond to now. Am I correct that for the first time after 4 months of this intense eyeball-to-eyeball conflict in eastern Ladakh, India may now have the strategic and psychological advantage, and China, you fear, will seek to equalize the situation?
See, absolutely. See, the Kailash range, we have secured a frontage of 30 kilometers from the south bank of Pangong Tso up to Rechenla. All the important features, starting with Helmet Top, Black Top, Gurung Hill, Magar Hill, Mukhpari, Rizangla, and Rechenla. I have been to all these positions personally except the Black Top. Now, all these positions are on our side of the LAC because the LAC runs along the crest of the Kailash range. In 62, all the battles of Ladakh, the Chushul battle was fought here on the Kailash range. However, since 62, we did not occupy it as the LAC runs along the crest, and we did not want to create a situation of confrontation. And now that we have secured it, the Chinese were complacent and caught napping, or I would say literally with their pants down. They did not have too many forces in Spangur Tso because they never expected us to do this. And it also highlights the point that high technology in high altitude and mountains has got sheer limitations. Despite the round-the-clock UAV surveillance and other surveillance devices, we were able to achieve total surprise. Now we overlook their defenses. And China also claims that Black Top is on the eastern side of its claim line, whereas we say that it's on our side of the LAC. Now, with this situation, China has no option. We enjoy a phenomenal advantage. If it does not evict us from here, or at least selectively from certain places which are most threatening to it, like Black Top, Rizangla, and Rechenla, then we have carried the day.
Right.
And it would be a great achievement for us, and we have neutralized the entire advantage China has gained in the area of Depsang, in the area of Gogra Hot Springs, and also north of Pangong Tso. And China would be forced to settle up and agree to status quo ante April 2020. Now, to avoid this, it will try a localized action. And in my assessment, it would go for Blacktop because it claims that it is on its side, and it will try and evict us from there. And then on the southern side, it would like to evict us from Rizangla, Rechenla, because from here, if we launch an offensive, we go directly into the middle of the Spangur Tso, and we reach the international boundary as it existed in 1947. So this is the compulsion for China. And the longer it gives us to consolidate, the more difficult it becomes for China to do anything. And then, of course, it will be fait accompli for it.
Again, very significant what you're telling us, General Panag, because already we've seen a day after the Chinese troops tried to close in on Indian positions on south bank of Pangong Tso, pictures emerging of Chinese soldiers armed with automatic rifles, spears near Rezangla and the Mukpari area at a high altitude. Many are saying this is the first direct evidence of mass use of medieval style weapons of war by the Chinese army, almost of a kind that the PLA did earlier in Galwan in June. What do you make of it? Are we seeing a repeat of what happened in Galwan in June? Or is this now a very different attempt being made by the Chinese to recapture these heights at the moment?
Actually, this seems to me to be part of the Chinese deception plan. What the Chinese want us to do is they feel that they want that us to believe that they treat the whole thing as a normal LAC confrontation like it has happened elsewhere. So they are trying to trigger an incident like Galwan, and so that talks begin for disengagement. And when we disengage from, like, for example, what happened on night of 7th and 8th August is in the area of Mukpari. Mukpari is the highest point on the Kailash range south of the Spangur Gap between Magar Hill and Rizangla. It is 5,400 meters high. So if we have to disengage from here after an incident, then we'll have to come down. We cannot remain on the crest. So this is what China wants. And its hidden intent is that while we are getting involved with all this, it will strike at Kalapahar and at Rizangla, Rechenla, and possibly at Mukpari. There has been a slight error of judgment on our part. In our zeal to be righteous and remain on our side of the LAC, as we got the crest of the Kailash range, we did not go forward and secure the adjoining, equivalent or slightly lower heights to prevent the PLA from climbing up. For example, where the incident happened at Mukpari, just a kilometer away, there is an equal feature. It's a kind of a plateau area, which is just about 100 meters lower. Now, because we remained on our side of the LAC, the PLA soldiers have come and occupied that feature. The same is possible in the area of Magar Hill, where they also would have occupied. It is not possible in the area of Blacktop. It is not possible in the area of Rizangla and Rechenla. So from these features, it can commence to try and trigger these kind of incidents. We should be wary of them. We should mind the area, not allow them to close up with us. We should put booby traps so that they don't come close to us. And if push comes to a shove and we have to use force, then we must use proper military force and fire for effect. And China, let me tell you, both in 1962 on the Nanga Ridge.
You know, already reports are coming in that obstacles are being put by the Indians in forms of barbed wire. The fact, what you're saying though, General, is important. You're saying, let's not have a repetition of Galwan in June where there was this virtual hand-to-hand localized conflict. This time, if we are to get into a conflict with the Chinese, it will have to involve proper firepower. But do you fear the consequences of that spreading? That it could go well beyond eastern Ladakh? Is that not a fear?
I think we should not take counsel of our fears in this regard. We cannot have our soldiers killed in this kind of shameful manner as to what happened in Galwan River Valley. In 62 at Thagla Ridge, in a similar situation, China did not hesitate to use fire. In 1967 at Nathula, we were merely laying barbed wire on the LAC, and the Chinese opened fire on us with machine guns and caught our troops in the open. Of course, we retaliated later and gave them a bloody nose. So China, see what China does. So why should we respond to them the way they want us to respond? And then, like I told you, it's a deception. They want to fool us. They say their hidden intent is that they are preparing for a counterattack at Blacktop and at Razangla, Rechinla, and possibly at Mukpari itself.
Do you believe, though, as you said, given our past experience, Nathula, you gave an example of today, that was the 1960s, in the 21st century, 2020, are we more than capable of repelling the Chinese in these areas, given the mountainous terrain? Can we act, do we have the capacity to repel the Chinese PLA army today?
See, we have got 10 days already, 11 days since 30th morning. And we would have done a fair amount of preparations. The more time we get, the better our defenses would be. Then our entire wherewithal, our artillery, our air power, everything is in position. Then we have our reserves in position to take counter-action. And our counter-action this time, we have many options. I don't want to discuss them because they lie in the realm of security, that if the Chinese attempt to do something like what I'm suggesting, that they will counterattack, then we must preempt them. And we have many options and which can be exercised.
Where does all this leave, General, the talk of military disengagement? The two foreign ministers are meeting tomorrow in Moscow. There is much talk of an attempt made to somehow or the other restore the status quo ante as existed in April 2020. Where does this leave the entire exercise of diplomatically engaging with the Chinese? Are we saying that we've now reached the point where there may be no option, particularly for the Chinese, to try and recapture the Kailash heights that they have lost?
See, it's like this. It's a psychological game. We have got the moral ascendancy now as far as the Chushul area is concerned. And this area is very vital to China. If China feels that it cannot get these heights back or the cost will be prohibitive, then take it from me, it will agree for a settlement and for on our terms now, and that will be status quo ante April 2020. If it feels that it has a chance to evict us, then it will take that chance.
How confident, though, General, are you that the Chinese will not try to maybe widen the area of conflict, that there could be incursions in the central or eastern sector? Are you confident that whatever happens in the next few days, and that's what you seem to be suggesting, that it could be as early as the next few days, will be localized to eastern Ladakh?
See, at the moment, we are, I think, mobilized everywhere. I mean, we are not naive, and we would have taken all the precautions in the Northeast. In the Northeast, our defenses are very strong. They have been developed over a period of time, and certainly since 1987 after the Sundrangshu incident. And we have got adequate reserve formations. My assessment is that China will not try anything there. It will try and keep the whole thing localized here. Because after all, the Chinese territory that China has usurped from us, the Aksai Chin, the areas north of Pangong Tso, and a few other areas, lie in Ladakh. In the east, they had willy-nilly recognized the McMahon line, and while notwithstanding what they say, that's a fact on ground.
Right.
And we are very strong there. So I do not think, even if they do attempt it, anything would happen there. But my assessment is they will not, their main focus will remain in Ladakh.
Okay, so you're saying it will be localized if there is a conflict. Let me in conclusion ask you something that I saw you've written this morning, saying that India's capturing of these posts was necessary for national morale, international prestige, a tactical operation well executed. However, you say it would be naive to celebrate a small operation because China will not respond the way we did for the last 4 months. The PLA is likely to react violently. We must gear up for an escalation. Is that, in conclusion, General, the big message? Let's be prepared for the worst, and that worst could be in the next few days.
Absolutely. That's what I've written in the last paragraph of my column today, that this report was very necessary because the whole world was watching us. The morale of our nation was at stake. Our international standing was at stake. We had to do this. And by this, we have redeemed part of our lackadaisical performance that happened in the month of May and June up to the Galwan incident. And as I said, that China will respond violently. China is not like India. We tried to follow the diplomatic course and negotiate, but look at China's statements and look what they have been saying. They're very belligerent, and in my view, they will definitely take aggressive action against us. But we are ready, and the nation also must gird up to face the consequences should the situation spiral into a limited war.
General Panag, you put the situation in context. You've also included a warning. Be prepared for conflict in the next few days or weeks ahead. Thanks very much for joining us and giving us a sense of the lie of the land.
Thank you, Rajdeep. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. Thank you, General. Let's turn from there, though, to where it all begins, because India's war with China in 1962 will still be considered the biggest reference point as of now in the history of India-China military standoffs. The outcome of that war, including in areas like Rezangla, served to cast in stone the notion of Chinese military superiority. Let's go back to where it all started, how things panned out in 1962.
In 1947, when the British left India, there was no clear line that demarcated the newly independent country and the territory of Xinjiang and Tibet across the Himalayas. In the official 1950 India map, Kashmir's boundary east of the Karakoram Pass was shown as boundary undefined. A sort of ambiguity prevailed over large tracts of land, and nothing would have mattered had China remained politically weak and militarily ambivalent towards its southern extremities. But in 1949, the Communist Party under Mao Zedong seized power in Peking, and in October 1950, 80,000 soldiers of the PLA marched into Tibet and declared it to be a part of China. In 1956, China built a road cutting through Ladakh's Aksai Chin area, connecting Xinjiang and Tibet, making the Aksai Chin area far more accessible to the People's Liberation Army than to its Indian counterpart. In the eastern sector, in the then Northeastern Frontier Agency, or NEFA, Indian troops began patrolling heights that China saw as a violation of the disputed McMahon Line. On October 20th, 1962, 3 regiments of Chinese troops mounted a blistering attack along the southern bank of the Namkachu River, and suddenly India was at war with China. A military confrontation that was fought both in the east and the west, in Arunachal Pradesh and Ladakh. This was a war dictated and controlled by Chinese aggression. After 4 days of crushing battle, on October 24th, the Chinese halted. Peking sent an ultimatum to New Delhi, setting conditions for the withdrawal of its forces and hostilities. On November 14th, India told China there would be no deal. Hours later, the war resumed, both in Nefa and in Ladakh. On 18th November, the Chinese overran Bomdila, the southernmost strategic point that they were to occupy. The road to the plains lay open before them when they declared a unilateral ceasefire along the entire border and announced withdrawal of its troops to 20 kilometers behind the line of actual control, LAC. The war was over, and India, having been militarily humbled, it acted as a wake-up call to build up muscle.
That then was 1962. We are in 2020, and the last thing perhaps we need at the moment is a military conflict. All eyes then on the Chinese and Indian foreign ministers when they meet in Moscow. Can the two countries pull back from the brink? We'll be watching. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.
Hello everyone, this is Rahul Kamal here. Hope you enjoyed this video. For the latest news and analysis, like and subscribe the India Today YouTube channel and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated.